ag operations told to be on alert this week with solar storms sparking GPS concerns. I'm Alex Makovica reporting on the Rural Radio Network. Dr. Terry Griffin is a precision ag economist with Kansas State University and joins us now. Dr. Griffin, we've obviously heard about these solar storms ramping up here in the last couple of days. One indication, seeing those northern lights over the weekend. Tell us a little bit more about these solar storms and the implications for the ag industry here.
We're monitoring this from different angles. For instance, spaceweather.gov, which is one of the dashboards that NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, has with Space Weather Prediction Center. They have the latest observed disturbances as well as the prediction for the next 24 hours. And the indications, we've been under some activated atmospheric activity since Friday, since June 1st, middle of the night, Saturday morning. And we are monitoring that. We've sustained it ever since about midnight Friday or Saturday morning. And the longer this goes on, the increases the chances of GPS signal degradation, maybe such that we will be off by inches or a few feet or not even being able to get a lock. So, yeah, it's ongoing, and we're anxiously seeing if any of the farmers are having GPS problems. I've not heard of any so far. A little bit surprised because on Saturday and Sunday we did have pretty severe storm. We had a G4, so no ranked storms by the G scale. This is geomagnetic disturbance from G1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We were in the G4 disturbance, which is pretty severe. I think that's the word they use. It's not an extreme G5, although that could be possible this week. Right now, it looks like we are not in one, but we've had G2 and G3s in the last 24 hours.
When I was reading the article, you broke it down really well about how, why all of a sudden it seems like we're seeing more of these. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I can. So going back to that website, I do encourage our readers and listeners to go to spaceweather.gov. It's the shortest URL version to get there. And one of the parts is the solar cycle. And it's something that we don't normally think about, I guess, if we're not a space scientist, but every 11 years, the sun goes through a cycle. And right now, we're in solar maximum. That means it's we peaked in the number of sunspots that's been observed on the surface of the sun facing Earth. And in about 5 years from now, we'll be in solar minimum. And that's when there's virtually no or very few sunspots on the surface of the sun. And think of sunspots as not causing northern lights and GPS problems here on Earth, but think of them as being a symptom of magnetic activity in the sun. And so the solar sunspot cycle, there's a really good charts on spaceweather.gov that shows this. It's very predictable. It's been going on since at least 1750s when humans have measured this on a daily and monthly basis rigorously. It goes back to 1750. And to give you an idea, we're in the 25th solar cycle since then. So it's not like we've had hundreds of observations of cycles. This is the 25th one. And the cool thing about it is solar cycle 25 is not an anomaly. This is a normal solar cycle. This is what we should expect every 11 years. The previous solar cycle, number 24, was unusually mild with respect to sunspot counts and coronal mass ejections and solar flares, although they did exist, but we didn't have any G5 activity during solar cycle 24. The previous solar cycles, solar cycle 23 was normal, but we didn't have GPS being actively used on farms then. At best, we were less than 5% of planted acres had GPS automated guidance during solar cycle 23. So what we're experiencing now should be considered normal. And in 5 years from now, we won't really have any expected solar activity to interfere because it'll be solar minimum. But 5 years after that, we'll be in the battle zone of solar cycle number 26.
Is it fair to say that producers probably haven't experienced this a whole lot? I mean, planting isn't at full speed right now. We've got some rain, so sprayers aren't really going. Is that what we're seeing, or are these storms not as strong? What do you think's at play here?
I think both. I think what we've experienced this week is we haven't had sustained intensity long enough for GPS to have problems. But what you said is also true. For the most part, we're almost completed planting corn, but this is when we start spraying, and automated guidance relies upon GPS to work. And there's workarounds. Let's say, for instance, we may have row markers or find some way of getting seed in the ground. But technology like section control, which could be on the planter, row shutoffs, and sprayers, a nozzle and boom section control shutoffs. That technology relies upon good, accurate GPS, and that could, we're going to be spraying in June, July. Peanuts in Georgia are still being planted, and it relies not only on GPS but RTK accuracy. 1 inch accuracy is what peanut farmers need for planting and digging, because peanuts are underground. So if there's a degradation such that they're a few inches off, that's essentially a outage when it comes to RTK being used for planting peanuts. It's as if it's not no automated guidance at all with respect to yield potential. Yeah. So I think both are at play, but the longer we set at a G2, G3 activity, the atmosphere is stimulated, it's activated. And it's not just one event. The first event kind of happened, Friday night. It's a train of events. So it's compounding on one another. And the sun is still very active. We just had a new active region that rotated into view this morning that could give us some activity. That being said, a lot of our listeners and readers may not realize that the sun rotates much like the Earth does. And it takes about 28 days for it to go all the way around. And so some of these really active regions will, be on the surface of the sun facing Earth for a few days, and then they'll go behind the sun and, a couple of weeks later reemerge. We think they may be the same region. We can't tell for sure because we can't see on the other side of the sun. But there is a really repeating pattern there, these large active regions. And when I say active region, these are sunspot areas that may be having, solar flares are one that we're dealing with right now. And on Friday, we had a coronal mass ejection, which means we actually had plasma, particles, not just light, but particles from the sun, matter, that left the sun and arrived here at Earth. And that's kind of the phenomenon that is associated with causing northern lights, aurora borealis, which we could see in Nebraska and Kansas, this week. And I had some really good photographs myself on Friday night.
Yeah. Okay, that leads right into what I was going to ask you next, and it might sound like a silly question. I know the northern lights are kind of associated with this. Are there physical signs here on Earth that the sun is experiencing those things? Does that question make sense? I know it's kind of silly.
So there are several things that manifest into things that are directly measurable. I have colleagues. Bob Lehman is one who correlated sunspot counts to cherry blossom dates in Washington, D.C. And so if you're familiar with the cherry blossoms in D.C., there's a festival that's associated with it. And it's really inconvenient when they plan the festival and they miss the actual blooming dates of the cherry blossom trees. And we have a couple million visitors who are, unhappy. So they'll be looking at that and trying to get a better prediction forecast of when the cherry blossoms will be in full bloom. And it is correlated to sunspot cycles. And again, that's in 11 years and so forth. That's one thing. There's a lot of things do correlate, but there are some legitimate studies that suggest that El Nino cycles, especially in the Indian Ocean, Australia, South America, are affected by solar cycles. So those do exist on a long term, multiple year scale. But yeah, you're right. So when we see aurora in Arkansas, where I'm from, I seen it in 1991. That was way before we had GPS, though, on farms. The activity in the ionosphere, which is a layer of atmosphere that the signals from GPS have to come through, it's dense when we have conditions suitable for northern lights this far south. And those kind of go hand in hand. The aurora doesn't cause GPS problems, and GPS problems don't cause the aurora, but they're both caused by the same phenomenon from solar weather, space weather.
Fascinating. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I realize I have already taken up over 10 minutes, so I really appreciate this. Is there anything else that you thought, this might be something to mention?
I'd like to remind our listeners to check out the NOAA website for Space Weather Prediction Center, spaceweather.gov. A lot of really good information here. One of them is dedicated to GPS, global positioning systems. There's some really good maps that you can kind of play to see if when and where outages occurred. And there's also the KP index, the planetary KP index I keep an eye on. Right now, I'd encourage folks to scan it and look for colors. Red, dark red would indicate that we're experiencing some kind of geomagnetic disturbance. And the blocks at the top of the web page, there's 3 letters, R, S, and G. R is radio, radio blackout, radio burst. G is geomagnetic disturbance. If those are colored red, orange, dark red, that means we're experiencing activities from space weather that could be affecting high frequency radio waves, ham radio operators, GPS systems would be affected during those times. And if a farmer's having problems with GPS and they scan that website and all the boxes are green, we're not in experiencing solar space weather right now, then it may be a local problem that they're experiencing. They can call the dealer. But if those boxes are dark red, the boxes are dark red, then it's nothing that the dealer could probably help with.
Yeah, good information. Okay, good note to end on. Dr. Terry Griffin is our guest, precision ag economist with Kansas State University. We will have this story available at ruralradionetwork.com. I'm Alex Makovica reporting.